We're currently waiting for one more person on the commission in order to meet quorum. Okay, it looks like we do have 4 people now. I will share my screen, and Kelly, we can move forward.
All right, let's do our roll call and bring us to order. Commissioner Moorhead. Commissioner Case.
Here.
Commissioner Tarbett.
Here.
Okay, let's go on to approving our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda from November 1st and October 11th?
Mr. Moorhead, you're muted.
Yes, I was. I make a motion to approve the agenda for November 1st.
Lisa, you're muted.
Can we do the whole consent agenda in one motion?
Okay. Make a motion to approve the entire consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, let's move on to our action agenda by Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay, thank you. The first agenda item is really important, and this was introduced the last go around, but it's basically the capital facility plan. With the capital facility plan, all projects that the city is slated to do essentially over the next calendar year, as well as the next 6 years, is in the capital facility plan. I'll just provide the Cliff's notes for it. There is a spreadsheet that's a good overview. If you really want to know additional detail, you can actually go into the booklet, which is that PowerPoint that's on the screen right now. So I'll go over the key stuff by department. for next year and for future years. You could read that part at your own leisure. For administration and community development with the federal ARPA funds, we finally got out the bid to essentially redesign the council chambers so it has the appropriate equipment so we could do hybrid meetings and actually make it a little bit more into a council chambers, a traditional one, because in order to have the meetings and provide enough room for hybrid equipment, we need to build a dais and other things like that. So that's slated for basically 300,000, and then there's a design of 80,000. What we're doing there is we're also designing where the old jail cells are at. The east side of City Hall used to be the police station and the jail facility. For the last like 15 years, we've contracted out the jail of the county. So that's just essentially dead space. And we have growing staff and operations. So while we don't have the funds to construct and do renovation of the jail cells next year, we do need to design. So when we get the council chambers done later on, when we get into the jail cell side, we aren't having to tear out stuff we just installed. So it's really important we have a finite plan for that whole area, and that's what it's going for. Fire department, quite a bit of stuff there. Regional fire training tower. City of Walla Walla finally awarded the bid for construction on that. It did climb a little bit because the bidding environment for construction is definitely very aggressive. And there's not enough contractors, which means the cost is escalating. So the cost of the fire training tower, it's borne by a third. So the city contributes a third, City of Walla Walla gives a third, and then Fire District 4 gives a third. Because right now we're essentially using a condemned fire training tower for training purposes, which isn't the wisest thing to do. Other elements we're working on next year is there's an exterior staircase that's rotting that we need to replace, and then also renovating dorm room because, as you may or may not know, our fire department is primarily operated by volunteers and they're student volunteers, so we actually have quite a few that live at the firehouse, so we do need to make it an acceptable facility for them all. Also, water source heat pump replacement is slated for next year. Police department, going to that item. Two big items for them. Overall, not big in the totality of the CFP, but the gun range building out of wastewater treatment plant, and we use CARES money to go get that from the school district over in Walla Walla. That portable we moved over there needed a new roof and then washroom, so we're taking care of that. So the amount of money slated for that is 23,000. And then also one of the heaters and chillers, we replaced one of them 2 years ago, and the other one now is about toast and needs to be replaced as well. Parks department, the heavy lift next year is Lions Park. Everything else is in subsequent years, but we're getting ready to essentially charge ahead with that, and that'll entail walking path development, converting the softball field on multi-purpose with a backstop and turf, splash pad, separating the pond from the creek so it can be used for fishing for next decades. And then also new restrooms, new picnic shelter, but we'll keep the chimney and the old one to be used as a rock climbing wall. And then Blue Zones is helping us try to secure additional grants for capital assets that would be helpful for the farmers market and for general events we want to have down there in the future, like getting legitimate electrical system out there, a stage, storage areas for our events, things like that. So that's what's slated for parks next year. Going into stormwater, you'll see with the rest of projects, there's a couple of construction ones, but as far as streets and storm, next year is a fairly intensive engineering year where the construction would be the following year, and you'll see that in the next couple. So in stormwater, the idea here with the first project, Southeast Birch from 4th to 6th, is if you've all been out there, that street is completely shot. There's elements of curb that's up on a 45-degree angle. Pavement is failing. It's basically an aggregation of potholes on potholes. So we want to get engineering complete on that next year. So the following year we could reconstruct it, because it's essential that it has an appropriate stormwater system, because there is a creek that crosses that street mid-block. Next one is the street decant facility. So when you have a city that has a street sweeper, you're supposed to have a said facility that skims materials from liquid. We do not. We essentially just like dry it out on the bed, and that's like a big no-no nowadays. You have to have an actual facility that can handle that, that's ecology rated. So we're putting in grant funds from ecology, and they'll pay for most of it, but it'll be about 500,000 in engineering next year, and then $1 million in construction the following year. So that is storm. Now going to streets, several projects there. So the first one is install the flashy stop signs at Whitman and Larch. So turning that into a 4-way stop sign, because definitely the traffic issues that were identified in the local road safety plan showed we had to do something. So that's for 10,000. Our chip seal programs, that puts a rocky course material on the coating of the road, and it keeps the road in drivable condition for another 10 years. So it extends the life of the roads. We have a program slated for next year. So basically the neighborhoods across Highway 125. So in that whole area. So Harvest Meadows, Nap Addition, Bliss Lane, that whole area. And that project, we typically allot 60,000 a year towards. The next project is block resurfacing. Typically, we have a block of roadway that needs to be resurfaced per year. This has been how it's been since I've been here. So we formalized the program about 2 years ago. So for next year, we're going to resurface Southeast 6th from College Date. And that's going to go at the same time as we're replacing a water main along the same route that's starting to fail. So essentially, it'll be 2 projects at the same time, but that'll be about 30,000 the pavement allocation. Next project is 4 bikes. You can see the demonstration element of that project out on 4th Street today, because Blue Zones, that was their big demonstration project, but we'll construct it permanently. So that's extending the cycle track down 4th. Right now it terminates at Davis, and it causes safety issues at the Davis 4th intersection. Instead, it'll continue down the College Avenue. And then as part of this treatment, we'll put in pedestrian street lamps on the south side of the road going from College to Academy Way. In this project, we're going to move aggressively on due to some grant constraints. So by next spring, they'll be complete. We're going to move on that very soon. Safe Walk College Place, we actually got another CDBG grant to go build more sidewalks. So this time it'll be around the southwest 6th and 8th neighborhood. So 6th from Davis to College, and then 8th from Bade over to College. So about $364,000. Next engineering one's Majania Road, as you know, with future development heading that way. and the fact that we annexed that into community a couple of years back. It's built to a rural standard, and we need to upgrade it to a urban. So we do have some MPO engineering grant funds for that in the amount of 711,000. That will happen next year. I was hoping we could start it this year, but essentially we need to do an amendment within the MPO tip. So it's looking like that that'll be an all next year project. And then another one is the broadband project. Now, this one is going to occur as we get awarded funds. To date, we've turned in about like 5 grant applications for this, just to essentially construct dark fiber and then lease it out to whoever wants to use it, because there's a ton of grant money pretty much coming from everywhere to go put broadband. So we're actively pursuing that as opportunities cross our desk. Whenever we get awarded a group of grants, we believe the engineering element would be about $1 million, and then the construction around $3 million. That number definitely is a guesstimate, but we think it's a fairly solid one based on the port broadband study. Going to the next section, which would be wastewater. There is a number of projects there. So the wastewater treatment plant, we're going to essentially tee up that project for construction. The heavy construction on that, though, will be in fiscal year 2023. So we'll be doing some final engineering work and essentially getting it out for bid and awarded, I would suspect, next year. So I believe it'll be $2 million, but the totality of the whole project is about 25 million. So very big project. We're trying to get grants from anywhere and everywhere for that. Next one is lift station number 5. That's a newer one compared to past CFPs. Paul Hartwig notified us of this back when the federal infrastructure bill was being developed. If you go on Southwest First between Davis and Academy Way, there's a lift station. It's actually like in a coffee can contraption in the middle of a sidewalk, and that lift station conveys all the sewage from around Walla Walla University and North College Avenue. Right now it's undersized. Our staff can't safely get into it. It's also a tripping hazard on the sidewalk. And the other bad thing is that it has no backup generator. So if the electricity fails over there, we're in a world of hurt. We did get financing for this from the state. So we're going to engineer a replacement, acquire some land a little bit to the east of the current site across the street, and then build a legitimate building so we can safely get staff in there and maintain it. Neighborhood sewer lining, that's another one. That's essentially where you get this like polyurethane tube and you inflate it and you cook a new pipe in an old pipe, and it actually keeps the pipe passable for sewage for about 50 years. It's a very inexpensive way to fix a sewer as long as it doesn't have mission critical failures in it. One thing you'll notice from past years, though, is we only do sewer lining now every other year. And the main reason why is that the contractors, there's very few contractors that do this work. And the ones that do, they are not interested in mobilizing and coming out here for little like $100,000 jobs. They want like a couple $100,000 jobs, or else the bids come in really wacky. So the idea is that we essentially aggregate projects and then we do them every other year, so that way we get competitive pricing. Then going into the water system, some of the projects there. Well, number 6, we've been fighting that project pretty much since I've been here. I'm happy to say it's finally going to come to a conclusion. We awarded the well house bid to Nelson Group. We awarded that basically last week, and then also did a contract amendment with RH2, and we're going to construct that well house next year, so we'll finally have a 3rd well. The thing I want everyone to keep in mind, though, is that only gets us back to where we were with the number of wells 5 years ago. So we did all this work, but it's to replace two failed wells. Yet the population has still increased. So I would argue that we still have a problem as far as number of holes in the ground, because we have an increasing population. We're only getting caught back up to where we were 5 years ago. But that project will be active and should be operational by the summer. Skyne 12th, that project is to replace a main that goes in people's backyards, and it's really hard to access because it's really deep. We want to move the water line to the front right away, and also with newer material, because the old iron pipe, that stuff fails, and it has several failure inflection points in it. This project we were trying to do last year, but the bidding environment was just out of control. So we have backfilled this project with ARPA funds, and then we also got Public Works Trust Fund loan to make sure that with whatever this thing comes in at from a bidding standpoint, we're able to do it, because it's critical we get it done. Solar array, this one's driven by grants, but there is some room over by the Whitman water tanks for a solar array. So we are going after Department of Commerce funds, private foundation funds, any grant fund to make that a reality. 6th Street water, this ties in with that block resurfacing project I mentioned earlier. This will replace some failing water main on Southeast 6th Street that needs to happen. Then getting into two other projects, we have Public Works Trust Fund financing for well number 7. This is our attempt to finally get an additional well online that didn't previously exist. The concept is to actually put well 7 on the land over near where the new lift station will be for Southwest Sewer off of Teal Road. So that way the well could backfill Western College Place. So stuff in the Stone Creek area, Majanier, areas, all the western parts, even like Homestead. Then the other thing is to start engineering for a water tank. We're looking at doing the water tank on the bluff at the wastewater treatment plant, because that's a very high elevation, and essentially we could gravity feed water to the residences on either side of the bluff. That's needed because for, again, a growing community, we do not have a good supply of water as far as water storage goes. I mean, to put it in perspective, when I was city administrator at Colfax had a third of the population of College Place. However, it had 3 million gallons of water storage across approximately 5 sites. Now, College Place, for example, only has 3 water storage tanks and 1 million gallons aggregate. So what I'm saying in total there is that we basically have about a third of the water storage of the city of Colfax currently, yet we have 3 times the population. So that doesn't really compute. So we need to fix that and fix it soon. So that is the totality of what's going on next year. You can see that there's other projects in subsequent years per state code. When you do this, you need to do a 6-year planning horizon, but it amounts to basically around like 14 million and some change going into next year, and then you can see the totals for the subsequent years. But much like we've done all the other years, we always bring this before key advisory bodies where essentially these projects could affect elements of like what y'all do. So we always seek an advisory vote from like you all, Parks Board, Utilities Board, other advisory boards before it goes to City Council, because City Council will be taking basically they'll essentially have a public hearing on it later this month, and then they'll take action on it later this month, because we always adopt this before we adopt the final budget, since a lot of this essentially feeds what the budget actually says. So that, in a nutshell, is the capital facility plan. I will take questions, but we are looking for an advisory vote on this document and matter. Oh, Kelly, you're on mute.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments from our commissioners? It sounds like great projects that are going to happen here.
So Michael, does any of this raise taxes in this next year, or what's the situation that way?
Well, I mean, it doesn't raise property tax as far as the utility fees go. For water and wastewater, we do basically have planned increases there, and that's been in the utility studies, because the council adopts them on 5-year increments. So essentially, that's following that plan. For stormwater, we believe that we can do all those projects without an increase in stormwater, so that's what we're pursuing. But likely with the water and wastewater, it's going to be following the utility increases there, and we've been going over those at the council meetings via the public hearings for and discussions we've had for the overall budget.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I did notice too, back at the top of that list, you had 800,000 allocated. Is it next year for remodeling at City Hall?
We put a guesstimate in for that, because again, that gets to that whole jail cell project. So we need room for essentially the staff and so forth, and right now it's a bunch of old jail cells, and that's gonna have to be gutted out. And then we also have an old Sally port too. And the concept there is to essentially put in a conference room of some sort, and then office for a mayor. Because ironically, as it stands, we have so many people crammed in the building right now that the mayor actually doesn't even have an office in the building currently.
Oh,
Okay, thanks.
all right. Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay,
I make a motion to recommend the capital facility plan to the city council.
I'm sorry, Bruce, I did not hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I make a motion to recommend that we propose the city council approve the capital facility plan.
All right, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all approved, say aye.
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 Awesome. Okay, let's move on to our next action agenda item. Mr. Rizzatello?
Okay, thank you. So I want to make sure you're aware of this. We aggressively put together a very early level draft plan on this because of some federal money that's available. So the Economic Development Administration has a tourism and outdoor recreation grant that essentially funds commercial kitchens, community centers, things of that sort. We've been in discussions with College Place Lions Club. We always talked about renovating that building in front of the park when it was essentially on our dime. But I mean, really, when you look at the infrastructure within it, as long as you're able to essentially find grant funds So it's more part of the park. It would make sense to raise it and build something that's a little more airy and actually supports what the new park will look like. So you can see some conceptual stuff that Design West came up with. And it addresses some critical needs, including a commercial kitchen, meeting space, and then also storage, which is a big deal because there's going to be storage removed when we tear out that softball field. So the estimated project total is 2.9 million. What I was able to do with the grant application for the EDA is with all the other elements we're putting at Lions Park, I essentially was able to count all of those other elements as a match by just calling it the Lions Park renovation, where if this scores high enough, essentially the EDA would give us the money for the building and we'd get a free building. So that's the general plan. Luckily, there's enough other grants we got for that Lions Park project. In essence, we have a pretty hefty match when you look at it as an overarching project. So this was submitted basically last week. I'm waiting to hear from the EDA if we'll get it or not. I just want to make sure that this was in front of you all. Mainly just showing that if you support the general concept A, and B, if you see any flaws in the conceptual. Now, I wrote in the grant agreement that we would go through a whole community final design process. So there would be time to actually flesh this thing out. So we get what the community actually wants. But with that federal grant and the way the guidelines were coming out, we had to turn in something. So that's essentially what you see before you.
Okay. So, are we looking at an increase in square footage from what we have then, I'm presuming?
Very, very slight increase. It's roughly about 1,000-foot increase. The reason we can't go crazy with it is because way back when that park was created in the 1960s, the city actually obtained National Park Service money to do the work. And when you do that, that means whatever the park is, it needs to remain a park like in perpetuity. And I was able, like with the current community center, they actually never went through a process back then to get it accepted by National Park Service. I've had like fight with them the whole last 2 years to get them to accept that there's a building there from the 1970s. But what that means is that we can only do new type construction like this essentially within the footprint of the existing building or the parking lot. But that's it. We can't be going into the park because then they have to take in of the MPS property.
I see. Okay. Do we have any other comments or questions on the Lions Park concept?
Not for me.
Okay, do we have a motion to recommend to approve the concept and pursuit of the funding for the proposal of the Lions Park Community Center?
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval.
I'll
Okay, and
second it.
all right, all in favor? Say aye.
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 Awesome. Okay, yeah, that's an exciting project. Okay, let's move on to our state and federal legislative agenda for the fiscal year of 2022. Mr. Rizzatello?
Okay, thank you. So as you know, every year we essentially publish a state and federal legislative agenda. They pretty much look the same for the most part. I mean, instead, the federal one will just have federal elements in it, but it communicates our either policy support or opposition to key items. With the state one, you'll see the key issues, which is protecting our funding mechanisms, which are the various grant programs through Public Works Trust Fund, Transportation Improvement Board, CURB, Recreation Conservation Office. When the state gets in a bind, they like to sweep those funds, and that causes issues for cities to fund infrastructure. So we want to make sure they don't sweep our money. Also encouraging the state to continue to invest into the broadband. Also, development of the state transportation package. As you all may or may not remember, last year the state legislature was supposed to vote on a state transportation package, and they left Olympia without ever adopting anything. So it left everyone a little bit in a bind because there were various proposals that were fairly mature and then nothing ever happened. So finishing that would be great. Also making sure that they provide funds for to correct culverts, because right now that there was a court case where it essentially says if you have fish bearing streams, all your culverts have to essentially allow for fish passage, but they gave themselves a funding mechanism for state culverts, but said, hey, cities, you're on your own. So I mean, they're gonna put all this money in the state ones, and the fish are still gonna get stuck at the local ones. So they really should be a partner on the local one too. Then multifamily property tax exemption. This is on every year. Just a refresher on that. If you're in a county over 100,000, if you're in a city over 20,000, or if you're in a county seat, you automatically can do this, and it encourages multifamily housing development. Right now, we aren't in a big enough county. We aren't the county seat, and we only have a population of 20,000, which means that Walla Walla can do this program all day long, and we can't. So that's not fair. And then other items, US 12 Phase 8. Get that done so that way we have the whole corridor going between Tri-Cities and Walla Walla, and then also alternate compliance paths with wastewater systems regarding PCBs, because that's the main driver behind a lot of the state mandate on the treatment plant work. General government, big thing there is Growth Management Act. Reframe it where essentially the cities and the counties, I would say, have to be more partners and listen to each other, and cities have an equal footing on it, because right now cities can propose whatever the county, and the county, they don't have to follow it. They essentially can say, oh, well, that's nice, and essentially deny it, and then you're back to square one. So Growth Management Act, getting that fixed would be good. Property tax statutes, tying it to essentially growth and inflation rather than that 1%. Many other states do that. That really is a key thing that should be looked at. Also, greater flexibility with Open Public Meetings Act. There's all sorts of quirks with all these proclamations and stuff, and that really needs to be fumigated. Fully funding Municipal Research Services Center. We put that in every year because that is a mechanism that essentially provides a lot of good free research for the cities. And back when they raised the gas tax several years ago, that was one of the carrot items to get people to allow for it, that, oh, we'll fund it. And every year, the state always tries to threaten to defund MRSC. So we always try to come to their aid. Defend local control, and then fight unfunded mandates, and then also trying to bring back true recycling in a cost-effective manner. Because College Place still doesn't have recycling because you truly at the moment can't really recycle, although it's starting to get back in a limited degree. But we believe the state needs to take a much more active role in that. And then for public safety and human services, a lot of that ties around to clarifying and cleaning up that large police crime bill that passed last year, because there was a lot of stuff in it where, I mean, I believe the chief and I are both convinced that they probably didn't like read half of it before they passed it, and it's causing a lot of issues. So that's a big thing. Capital priorities are in the vertical column to the left of all the stuff I just read. And the key stuff, there's the treatment plant. I mean, we have to do that because state's mandating us to, but I'm doing everything I can to make them and the feds give Grant and other money, because I've communicated and I continue to again and again. Little cities our size don't have that kind of coin to finance something that big. Western water system improvements, I just mentioned that, so that would be a new well, and then elevated water towers, so that way we have appropriate water storage for a city our size. Stormwater decant facility, that I believe ecology is likely going to fund most of that via a grant, but that's just to make sure it's on their radar. And then Southeast 12th Street, College to Larch, basically reconstructing that with lights, pavement, new utilities, stuff like that. So that is a key project. For the federal legislative agenda, that the capital priorities are the same. The key issues there is just passage of a comprehensive infrastructure financing bill, because that's really what's needed for a wastewater treatment plant. Also, simplifying process for pursuing federal grants like USDA. I mean, we finally got the money to do the Southwest Sewer Forum, and that really is the only way we were able to do that project. But the amount of legwork that Brian and the finance department had to do and make that thing a reality was outright ridiculous. So they need to fumigate the whole process about it. Also, community development block grant programs, making that easier to actually administer. That would be key. And then also amend entitlement program, so it goes to the county level. Because right now, I mean, Wall is an entitlement where they just get a boatload of CDBG money because of their population size being above the 25,000. And with us, because we're almost 10, we have to compete against about 200 other cities at the state level, which makes it a pain. Also, US 12 Phase 8, making that get going. The city of Wall 125 and Myra Road project, we're partners on that, because if they do turn into a roundabout, we have signed memos of understanding that we get that left turn lane on the commercial drive. So that'll open that up more and make commercial drive, definitely, it'll raise eyebrows of developers, because having where it's essentially just a right turn off Myra for commercial and other types of development, that causes issues. And then naturally opposing unfunded mandates. But that is the state and the federal agenda. I typically have council adopt those in late November, so that's why it's going to you all for an advisory approval from the Economic Development Nexus.
All right, do we have any questions or comments from our commissioners? All right, then can I have a motion to accept the draft fiscal year 2022 state and federal legislative agenda so that it can move on to city council?
Yeah,
So
I move
moved.
that we recommend to city council to approve the proposed state and federal legislative agenda.
All right, thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Wonderful. Okay, let's move on to our reports, our community event update by Ms. Niesel.
Hey, yeah, so we had our trunk or treat on Friday. We had a really good turnout. Here's just a few snapshots from the event. And I don't know how many of you popped by, but it turned out pretty good. Had a really good turnout. And now that's over and we're in the planning for Light Up the Avenue. So Light Up the Avenue this year is going to be a little bit different than what we've had in the past. We're not going to do the event in the fire station part of it, but we are still going to move forward with our parade. So kind of my draft timeline that I'm thinking right now is 5:30 announcements at the municipal campus, and we'll light up the tree and all of everything at the campus, all the lights and all of that. And then we'll start the parade. Hopefully we've got lots of business and community organizations that are going to put in their applications. I will have those posted on the website as of tomorrow. I'll put them on social media and the website. I'm just finishing them up this afternoon. So we'll have the parade down College Avenue like we've done in the past, and then a extra large fireworks show at the Old Rogers lot after that. So open to comments, suggestions, anything on that?
Sarah.
Am I missing a date on that?
I'm sorry, Thursday, December 2nd.
Okay. Okay.
Thursday, December 2nd. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? So we won't be providing food or anything this year, then it'll be the parade with the tree lighting and the fireworks, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I kind of thought I would reach out to a couple of food trucks and offer that they can set up at City Hall parking lot if they want to, because we very likely would have business for them. But we're not going to have the vendor event in the fire station.
Gotcha. Okay, well, yeah, this sounds good. Are we planning on taking the same type of parade route then that we did before?
Yes, we will start on 10th Street and go up through to Whitman and then disperse on Whitman on College.
Okay.
So it'll go up College Avenue.
Okay, and then to get the word around, are you doing posters and things? And then of course, social media and everything.
Social media, I'm gonna put an ad in the Union Bulletin. Hopefully I'm gonna try and get everything together and get that ad in the Union Bulletin for Sunday. And yeah, it's only 4 weeks away, so it's happening fast.
Oh, I guess I better start planning.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, that sounds great, Lisa. I'm excited about that. All right, should we move on to our development tracking by Mr. Zatello?
Yep, for sure. This is us going over the tracking for the current month. There's a lot of tire kickers in there, as you'll see. And then we are making progress on some of them as well. So Project CK, they're still evaluating this gas station convenience store. Project Chocolate is a chocolatier and a retailer, restaurateur. They are still evaluating the site. Project HM, they're turning in site plans, so that's what's happening there. Project FM, that's tied to the Southwest Sewer. And then also FM wants to see a little bit more of a bona fide agreement on the housing element on the west side because they're concerned about like roofs around their business. So they're likely going to wait for those two items to get done. Project BK, the Burger King, that is going to be a spring project, but they're moving full steam ahead on that. Project W, that's on hold for now. Project D, that is the one that's really tied to a left turn lane for commercial drive. So as soon as that happens, I think they'll come back around and you'll see that go quick. Project Flight, there's a lot of discussion at the county level because property owners trying to change some zoning stuff around that project. So we continue to monitor that. Goodwill, they're doing very good work putting in the foundation, and they'll be ready by next spring, summer. And then Project Medical's another urgent care facility, not by a provider in the valley currently. It would be out on Commercial Drive. Residential Homestead, they're still doing stuff and working on the final plans for the wise size homes. Villages of Fort Walla, that is tied up in litigation with the property owner, the original property owner and the developer, but they're hopeful something will happen. Right now it's in mediation. Country Estates, they're working on the edits of plans for additional manufactured housing. The Sermon development over in Spitzenberg, there was some discrepancies about either wanting two lots or merge it to one lot because there's differing legal requirements on each one when you're doing multiple apartment buildings. But we're getting to a point where it looks like they will be ready to go soon. The stuff at the Stone Creek development, there are developers talking to Mr. Christensen and then also Mike, and essentially they've been reviewing the site. So I'm hopeful something is going to occur from that. Hamby, those apartments on Top Hill College Avenue, they continue to be built, so that's going good. And then the other stuff is Whispering Creek. There's still our homes being built in there, and that's the cul-de-sac off of 8th Street. So yes, stuff is still happening. I mean, definitely, I would say we're going to have to re-engage with our lodging contacts to start evaluating the whole hotel thing again, because all the contacts we were working with all got fired during the pandemic from the hotel industry. So that has gone through a complete changeover. So that's going to be a heavier lift, but everything else is holding its own. Questions? Oh, Kelly, you're on mute.
Okay, if we don't have any questions or comments on these, let's move on to adjourn our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we'll see you all next month then.
Thanks,
Thank-
everyone.
Thank you, Mike.